My name is Jennifer Haugland. I'm the veterinary diagnostician here, one of 3 at the laboratory. This is the Rollins Animal Disease Diagnostic Laboratory for the North Carolina Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory. Our main purpose is to protect public health and the food supply for North Carolina. So we run diagnostic testing on animals, animal tissues, animal parts to determine disease or cause of death.
Does that mean it's always with a dead animal?
Not always. No, we don't always get just dead animals. We get blood samples, tissue samples, biopsy sections from small animals, dogs and cats. My background, I grew up in a rural part of West Virginia, and then I went to Virginia Tech, got my animal science degree there. Had always planned on going to veterinary school, so I went to Virginia Tech vet school. And during that time, I decided to be a food animal track. We could track different types of species, and I tracked food animal there. And I decided I wanted to do dairy medicine. I had taken a dairy medicine class my 4th year of undergraduate and decided that was the industry I wanted to be involved with.
Okay. And so what interested you in this side of medicine?
Well, I had no idea I'd end up here. This was I would have never suspected I'd end up at a diagnostic lab, but I was looking to leave practice for a little bit more regular hours in a little bit more populated area than where we were living in Pennsylvania. And I just happened to catch the advertisement for this job like the day before it closed and said, oh, that's me. That's my job. This is what I like to do. My main job is to do necropsies on the dead animals that are provided here. Necropsy is the animal term for an autopsy. And we get anything: dogs, cats, horses, cows, fish. That happens to be one of my special areas. Done crayfish and flying squirrels. I mean, the whole 9 yards we get here. And the purpose of doing this is for detection of disease, diagnosis of why they died, detection of any emerging diseases that might be important to the herd or to that animal industry or to public health.
What's the craziest necropsy you've ever done?
We've had some very interesting animals. We've had a Siberian tiger here. We've had a giraffe here. Most of the time the crazy things are what comes with the animal. You know, the background of the owner or the background of the case. There's a lot of interesting stories that go with the animal and with the process, and so a lot of times you'll be surprised by what we find, or it all fits exactly the way it's supposed to be, and you get a really quick diagnosis. So we get about 300 to 400 cases a year between each of us, so that's about 1,000 cases a year come through this lab alone.
So tell me a little more about what you do.
So we will get animals from private owners, from producers, from the veterinarian, sometimes from animal control, if it's like an animal abuse case. They come here with the animal, we talk to them. One of the veterinarians will always interview whoever drops off the animal, so there's that face-to-face communication. And then we look at the animal and we do a full body examination, and we open up and we look inside and we see, based on what history we were given and based on what we see, we then determine what additional tests to do. And then from that, we will hopefully come up with a diagnosis as to why this animal died or why is the group of animals sick. And then we provide that information to the submitter, the owner, or the veterinarian, and then they can take that information and make changes or use it for treatment recommendations and such.
So I guess what you do is a little bit like CSI. I mean, there's a lot of detective work in some ways.
It is, and a lot of people make that comparison. What we do is, why did this animal die? A lot of times it's a dog or cat and the owner came home and found him dead. And you literally have to go back and go, okay, well, how was the animal acting a few days beforehand? Were there any issues? The owner may say, oh yeah, you know, now that I think about it, so-and-so is happening. So then you take that information, you look at the animal, do some additional tests, look under the microscope, run cultures, things like that, and hopefully it all fits together and you have a nice answer for them. But if not, sometimes you can at least rule out, well, we know it wasn't this and we know it wasn't that, and that information is also useful to them.
So other than necropsies and the basics, what else do you do?
A lot of times we spend a lot of time on the telephone answering questions. We are available to talk to the owners directly, to the veterinarians. So So we do some consultation, maybe we give them recommendations on what animals to bring for us to look at or what kind of tests to run. We will call them back with what we're seeing in their animals and do that kind of consultation. But I think the big thing is we're available. We may send them off to another laboratory or to another agency, but we usually can give them somebody to help them. This is the Rollins Laboratory, which is the main lab, which does all the testing that the whole lab system does. But we have 3 branch labs, and at each of those branch labs, they have 2 diagnosticians who run necropsies as well, and then they do some additional serology for mostly poultry cases.
And we've also got, here at Rollins, we can do some pretty intense testing, I mean, with all the equipment that we've got.
Yeah, it's a pretty high-tech laboratory. We have bacteriology sections, serology, virology where we can do cell culture of viruses and egg culture of viruses. We have the ability to do DNA detection of viruses as well, with what's called PCR. And the only thing we're really missing is a toxicology laboratory, but otherwise we can do just about everything